Hello, I'm Michelle Allen, and this is my colleague Gaynor Murphy. And together with Brandon Block, who you'll hear DJ later on this evening, we've created a charity called Happy Days for Everyone. It is a bit of a tween aim, but we believe that no matter what your age or background, everyone has the right to be happy, but not everyone knows how to do it. For us, happiness isn't running around laughing all day with a big grin on your face. It's about being able to manage the ups and downs of life with a sustainable feeling of well-being. So we've combined all of our experience and knowledge of positive psychology, coaching, CBT, neuroscience to create products that engage and educate people in how their minds work. We use simple techniques and practical solutions so you can have more mental and emotional resilience and resourcefulness. Before COVID, the world was struggling with another pandemic, mental illness. With the increase of technology in our lives, there had also been a dramatic global increase in depression, stress, and even suicide. Now, since COVID, the statistics are even worse, with depression being Googled every 2 seconds in the UK. Happiness comes from when we feel in balance and in control, and all our basic needs have been affected since COVID, and the balance of our lives has been completely skewed. We don't have the human connection. Our goals and our plans have been put on hold, and we're living in a current state of stress, and this makes us feel out of control. So this is where we come in. We give you back control by showing you how your mind works and the impact your habits are having on your happiness.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, I think that some really valid points made there, actually, particularly about how the lack of connection is impacting on people and their emotional well-being. In fact, connection is the #1 indicator to happiness. And obviously, at Happy Days, we focus on happiness, but we also focus on habits. And the reason we focus on habits is because habits are actually the reason why we behave the way that we behave. And interestingly, when you just talked about the pandemic, I think what's happening is by this third lockdown, or if you could even say we've ever come out of lockdown, do you know how long it takes on average to build a habit?
Is it 60 days?
It's about 66 days on average, so it can be different for different people. But if you think about it like that, our new behavior, because they are new behaviors, we're responding to a pandemic that's never happened in our lifetime. So these new behaviors that we're experiencing are becoming our everyday habits. And so when you think of it like that, here's the key. You can actually think of it as, well, I can recreate these habits, right? So when things become a bit more normal, or whatever normal is going to look like post-pandemic, I think the key message is that we can change and we can regain back control, which is what you're saying. A lot of people are saying to us, we're feeling out of control. I just want to show you a slide here that's going to help, I think. So yeah, habits. We've got a program that we teach called Habits to Happiness, and we talk about habits because basically our habits are simply automatic responses. Yeah, the first time you do something, you are very consciously thinking of it, aren't you? So the first time you drove a car, the first time you walked, the first time you rid a bike, yeah, you're consciously thinking of it. And then over time, it becomes automatic, yeah? Everyone agree with that? Yeah, I think that's how we are, and particularly as adults, that's why sometimes, particularly in this pandemic, it can feel like we're just doing the same thing over and over again, and we're not thinking about new thoughts, we're not thinking about new things, and that can cause a lot of stress and anxiety and a lot of feelings of depression. So I'll tell you what's going on in your brain, because you mentioned before, part of what Happy Days is about, it's about educating people so that they can become aware of why it is they're doing what they're doing. Because you can't change something you're not aware of, yeah? So I want you to put your hands up here, and I want you to give me a little wave. Thank you, Michelle. Now, I want you to imagine that this is your brain, all right? Now, this top part and these fingers in your brain is actually this part of your brain inside here. If you put your hand inside of your brain, that would sit at the front, and that's called the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex part of the brain is our conscious part, it's our logical part, it's the part that we make decisions with, that we think about things in a certain way, okay? That's conscious. You can't do that subconsciously because you need your thinking brain, that's what I like to call it. This little guy here sits inside of that, underneath the prefrontal cortex, right in the center of your brain, and that's where your subconscious or your emotional brain sits, yeah? That's where things go. So say, for example, the first you drive a car, all right? You're consciously thinking about driving that car, and over time it becomes a habit. How many times have people gone to drive on the school run or gone to the local shop and they turn up outside the grandma's house or something and you're like, what? And you've gone into automatic pilot, we call it, yeah? That's because your behaviours have become automatic and it sits under there. So if we think about it like that, what you've got to think about is that if it takes 66 days to create a new habit, imagine all of the new habits and behaviours that we've picked up during this pandemic and the impact that they're having on us. But it's understanding that once it's in there, all you've got to do is shake it up to become aware of what you're doing and why to make a change. That's all it is. It's about awareness and being able to understand what's just happened to us and how are we going to make changes. The other thing to recognise as well is when we think of habits, give me a habit you think of straight away.
Smoking, drinking.
Yeah. Do you know what?
Normally all the bad things, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's all the bad things. And this is what we get told is, the habit, overeating, overindulgence. Actually, what if I told you that a habit was breathing? Yeah, because a habit is, it is breathing. It's your body's way. Your brain needs to keep you alive. So there's a drive behind the breathing. There's also emotional habits that I think get really overlooked. Things like negative self-talk, such a huge issue in today's life. We have 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And I think something like 90% of them could be negative thoughts. And so it really takes a real effort to create a positive thought. But it is possible. It is possible to change thinking. You've also got emotional habits like anger, because if you think about a habit, it is simply an automatic response to a situation that you have been through. And it just becomes habitual, it becomes automatic. So all of our behaviours really could be put down to emotional and physical habits.
So that would be the same for stress and anxiety as well then?
Yes, yeah. And the key is that that once you understand what the habit is and how it works, you can start to make changes. The other thing, to make changes, we need to understand, why we're doing what we do, yeah? Because quite often we can be aware, for example, right, I'm aware I'm standing having a cigarette, but I don't quite know why I'm doing it and I can't stop, right? So I've lost the control. And what you've got here, in every habit, you have a cycle of behavior. You have the cue, then you have the behavior and you have the reward. So let's stick with smoking. The cue is, I need a few minutes out, I'm stressed, yeah? So you go out, the behavior is, you go out, you light the cigarette. The reward is the feeling that you get from the cigarette, which anyone that's smoked will know you never quite get the same feeling and you need more and more and more of them, and then it becomes out of balance. And then before you know it, you feel like you've lost control. So let's think about the cue, the behavior. What we do at Happy Days is we use our Habits for Happiness program to teach you positive behaviors that you can swap out the negative with. Yeah? So if you think of it like that, every behavior has a cue because you are seeking out a reward. But if you swap out the behavior to a positive one, you can get the same reward, if not better. What we do in our program is we get people to, back to the brain, we get people to shake up how it is they're feeling and what they're thinking and get them to look at things from a new perspective. Because once you see something, it's really hard to unsee it. Yeah, once you're aware of something, it's really hard to change it. And actually, if you don't think new thoughts, new things will not happen. And so we use this in the program that we do, this whole sort of, what do you see here, Michelle, when you look at this picture?
I see a horse.
Yeah, see, I just see a frog. But when you, I can see a horse. But again, it's about perspective and about understanding that we all come at life with our own perspective of the world. And sometimes we need that paradigm shift, as we call it. You need to be able to look at things in a different way. So just even explaining that habit cycle to people gets people going, oh, so there's a cue behind what I'm doing. So the overthinking, the negative thinking, that's a behavior that I've created in a response to something and I can then change that behavior with something else. And, you know, it makes logical sense. It's about thinking about things and seeing things in a different way. And also about recognizing that this stuff doesn't happen overnight, right? You didn't learn to walk overnight, did you? We didn't learn to drive a car overnight, did we? So I don't know why we have this thing, we have this society where we think, oh, it's going to be fixed overnight. And if it's not fixed immediately, then there's something not happening. Actually, we advocated Happy Days, as you know, the vitamin approach. And the vitamin approach is about small steps and small changes. Because if a habit takes 66 days to build up, it has to take about the same time to rebuild a positive habit, right? You can't just wipe it out. The last thing to say before we go is that we can change. I mean, I know people, but what I mean is you can actually physically change in your brain. And the key ingredient to those physical changes being as strong as possible is serotonin. Now we know what serotonin is, don't we?
Feel-good hormone.
Yeah, it's the happiness hormone, it's the feel-good hormone, yeah? And that acts like a glue, yeah? You know yourself, right? When you're feeling happy, man, everything just feels easy, doesn't it? Doesn't it? I mean, oh, that you know, I still love my husband, but those first few years when you're madly in love and you're sort of like everything, you know, literally from the sky and you would love that person, you know? It's like everything just feels a lot easier. Now, when you're stressed, well, you know, there's you release the stress hormone, cortisol, and that acts as a blocker. Yeah, you can't think straight when you're stressed. You know, that overwhelm that people talk about. You know, when I did my you know, exams, stuff like that, you're sitting, I could study. You sit down, you've got to write down the first thing, and your brain's like, oh, what's the day? You know, you literally can't think because your cortisol is blocking your brain. So the reason why the Habits of Happiness program is really important is it's about, we concentrate on positive behaviors to create the best possible chance for change to grow and stick. And obviously there's a lot more on that. So just quickly, the program and what we cover, we've got 6 modules, and you can see here, we cover nutrition, we cover your state, emotional and physical state, your finances, stress is the #1 indicator for mental health issues, and language, how we're talking to ourselves and how we're expressing ourselves, and obviously the power of the habit. And what we do is we come in, we do a consultation, we do a happiness evaluation, give you a score, we send support emails, we do 6 modules over 6 weeks because it's a habit forming process. And then we give you the happiness score back. And this is not just for organisations. We actually deliver this program for individuals through coaching sessions, and we can do keynotes and one-day events. We also have the Habits to Happiness Kids program. You as an organisation have the ability to really make a difference in your local schools. And how you do that is you tap into your corporate social responsibility budget, giving to the Happy Days for Everyone charity, and we deliver our Habits to Happiness Kids program either to one-to-one to young people that are disengaged from education, or we do smaller group sessions with children and young people in secondary schools. If it's something that you're really interested in, maybe you've got a school that you'd like to adopt and offer some support, please do get in touch and we can have a chat and make this happen. Thank you.
Thanks. Goodbye.